I'm Dr. Julie Pham, founder of Curiosity Based. We help people practice curiosity in the world, starting in the workplace, because that is where we spend most of our waking hours. Curiosity as a practice boils down to self-awareness, relationship building, and clear communication. So join us as we interview leaders to see how they use curiosity at work.
Hi, I'm Dr. Julie Pham. Welcome to the Curiosity at Work podcast. Today, I'm looking forward to my conversation with Kate Nagle Caraluzzo, who is the executive director at Town Hall, a very special space in Seattle, which is a cultural hub, and it hosts over 100,000 people a year. Kate has over 15 years of experience in nonprofit leadership, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation where we're going to learn how Kate practices curiosity in the arts and culture space. Welcome, Kate.
Thanks for having me, Julie. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Kate and I also got to meet because Curiosity Based started to work with Town Hall a few years ago. So it was such a pleasure to get to meet your staff and your very engaged board as well.
That's right. And we're both Leadership Tomorrow alums, another nonprofit that we both love dearly.
Yes. And you just joined the board. So welcome.
Thank you.
So, Kate, let's start with if you could share who is one person in your life who has helped inspired you to practice curiosity at work, who helped teach you, model for you what it means to practice curiosity at work?
Yeah, this was such a fun question. I've been reflecting on it a lot since you sent it over, maybe only a month ago, but I found it one of those questions that was just like in the back of my brain. And as I've been like on dog walks and just like walking to my car, leaving work. So I also always have 3 answers, but Julie told me I had to use one, so we're going to do that. For me, I think the person who has really influenced curiosity for me at work was my dad. My dad was a math professor, and he taught at our local community college. And I took a few of his classes. I was lucky enough in high school to do a crossover program that allowed us to take some community college classes, and I was lucky enough to take one of his classes. And I think the thing that he taught me is that the journey really matters as much as your answer. And sitting in a classroom, talking to students, talking through their wrong answer was as important as talking through the right answer. And so much of it is, how do you get to the answer? Like it's not always about being right or being wrong. I think that curiosity is really the opposite of being defensive and being along for the journey of being able to find an answer. And it's really, for me, curiosity means you don't have to know the answer. You get to practice just being comfortable or being uncomfortable on how you get there. And I think my dad was a really interesting model of that, of really practicing what does it mean to be curiosity and what does it mean to lean into those conversations.
What a special experience to be able to get to experience your father as a professor in the classroom, because that must have been really different, right?
Really, really different. I mean, he brings his teacher energy everywhere. We have a running joke in my family, like sometimes he'll still go into professor mode, and it's very funny to like be his adult children and also be his constant students and his life students. And my mom is now obviously at home just with him, and we're not there as often. And sometimes she has to tell him to get out of professor mode. So it's very sweet.
And I like what you said about how he took the time to explain that there are different ways of solving a problem, because I feel that nowadays there's such a focus on right or wrong, good or bad, and just that taking the time to explain, hey, let's think through how you got there, and maybe there are parts in that journey where you could tweak and you would find another way. And so
yeah.
That's such a great example of how now you are applying it to your nonprofit leadership in the arts and culture space. And so, Kate, please tell us a bit about Town Hall and what is it? Who runs this venue that serves so many people?
Yeah, the magic of venues and who's behind it. So Town Hall Seattle is both a producer and a venue. So we own a historic home on First Hill. It's located at 8th and Seneca. So if you've ever been by those cross streets, you very likely have walked right by Town Hall, and you may know it and you may not. But it's a really wonderful venue. Like Julie said, we host about 350 events a year, and we see about 100,000 people through our doors. It's Town hall requires so many hands. We have about 22 administrative staff who really work on the back end of the organization. And that's everything from fundraising and marketing to our own programming, to our rentals, to literally operating our administrative side of the organization. And then we have another 25 to 35 part-time event staff. And that's when you literally come through our doors, anyone you interact with that night is likely a part-time event staff. And that is people who are scanning your tickets. That's folks who are serving you at the cafe. That's the magic that is happening when we call stage management and house management behind the scenes. So Town Hall operates as an organization and a venue, and it's just a full staff of so many people that make the magic happen. Town Hall operates, so we obviously operate the center of our building, but we also work hybrid. So our team is in the office 3 to 4 days a week, and then we try and have some flexibility around work from home, which is really nice because we also operating in a venue and working in live events means that a lot of our staff happen to be on site sometimes until 9 or 10 o'clock. So there's a lot of people who kind of swing through town hall at different points. You may not see me in the office until 11, whereas you might see our marketing team in the office around 8 a.m. and clocking out around 4 p.m. So there's just a whole slew of things that make town hall tick.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing the behind the scenes there. It sounds like a lot of coordination.
It's a lot of coordination. It's really interesting. I've been at town hall for 8 years, but I was the director of development for the first 6 of those years. So I've only been in the executive director chair for just under 2 years. We'll sneak up on that pretty quickly. And I think what's really interesting about both venues and operating in arts and culture organizations is that it's a little bit like a circus. Like it's unpredictable and it's joyful and it's complex and it requires us to be really systemized and also be hyper flexible. And I think that's something that lends itself to curiosity in all of our jobs, not just getting to sit in my seat, but sitting in all of our seats, is that we are responsive and we get to say yes to people. And that is such a gift in the nonprofit sector.
Yeah, I can imagine with so many part-time staff and that things come up, people get sick, and you're constantly having to respond to those changes because you still ultimately need people to run the events.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just over the weekend, we hosted the Jaipur Lit Festival, and it's the second time we've done this co-production with JLF. And it's a long-running literary festival that's based in India. And just last year, they launched in 7 American cities, and this year they did 9 American cities. So this is a team who travels across the country, and they host events with other producing organizations. And just this weekend, we were short-staffed, so a bunch of our admin staff was on site, including me. I reset a stage in the middle of the event. Like a lot of being in venues is also being servant leadership and just showing up and being like, today I'm about to run a mic and also I need to write this fundraising email. Like it's this just absolute collision of worlds. And it also feels really good. It feels really good to know everything about, how do I put a mic on stage, or like, how do I turn on the soundboard, and also being able to do those other really interesting parts of all of our roles.
And you also have a lot of volunteers too, right? Who help with the box office and the concession stand. So that means that you also have to be able to teach them how to take that responsibility as well.
Yeah, that's right. So our box office manager volunteers a team of anywhere between kind of 40 to 50 volunteers who come through our space regularly. And again, Town Hall is a venue and we're a producer of programs. So half of what happens on our stage is our rental partners, and half of what happens on our stage is programmed by our Town Hall programming team. Those two things can look and feel different in our space. And it's why Town Hall, when you walk in, it kind of feels like you're having the same experience over and over again. And that's the intent. Like the building is meant to be a home for those rental partners, and it's meant to be a home for our programming. And volunteers are core to both of those missions. So our volunteers might be in there for a rental event, and they might also be in there for a town hall event, and you're getting a similar customer service experience. And that is kind of the dream, that you walk into town hall and it always feels welcoming.
How many volunteers are there?
Yeah, the list is between 40 and 50. And
Okay.
I would say we have a really core group of about 20 volunteers who are in and out of the space regularly.
Wow. So actually, altogether with the volunteers, you've really got about 100 people on the team.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And when you add in like the rental partners, their staff, like so many people come through the town hall building and have like really deep ownership over this really wonderful space in Seattle. So it's a shared community resource, truly.
So that's a really interesting structure. Can you share an example of practicing curiosity at this intersection of venue and arts and culture, and also relying on so many different so many different volunteers, part-time employees, full-time employees?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I loved about that question is that at town hall, you don't really need to be an expert in anything to show up. It's kind of like curiosity is your only ticket in. And like maybe 15 years ago, the stranger called town hall Seattle's living room. And I think that's something that we are constantly trying to live up to make sure that it's a place where people can come through the doors and learn something or walk away with something or have an experience that changes them or have an experience they just want to tell other people about. So it can be this really broad based venue. Like we do a lot. We program arts and culture, civics and science, and our rental partners program those things plus more. We have community orchestras on our stage. We have tonight, the Greater Korean Seattle Association is doing a mayor's debate. Like there are so many things that happen in our space that are just really interesting to know about and to participate in. But I think the thing that especially town hall as a venue has to practice really thoughtfully, especially in this time frame, is that we are a neutral venue. We don't necessarily endorse ideas, speakers, or anything that comes across our stage. We hold space for dialogue, and that means constantly checking our own assumptions. And it also means that curiosity has to be our own discipline because it is in a time when we are really thinking about the complexity of what it means to be in such a polarized place. It is really incredibly important for us to hold the line of what does it mean to be a neutral venue and also to abide by our own community code of conduct, which really boils down to a few key points. But the main one is that we don't allow hate speech to happen from our stage and we don't allow hate speech to happen in our building. And if that is our building block, where do we go from there? And what does that really mean for us as we practice curiosity? And I think for all of us, all venues, all arts and cultures, all arts and culture organizations, we're always thinking about that. What does it mean to be a neutral space and really not to endorse any of those ideas?
Do you get pushback sometimes? Hey, you shouldn't be allowing this group in, even though they're not doing hate speech. Or maybe
Yeah.
is it considered, well, I consider that hate speech because even that could be that gray area.
Such a gray area. Like we hear that frequently, not so much that they have interpreted something as hate speech, but more as something like they really, really disagree with it and they don't want to see it on our stages. And we get feedback about our rental partners programming. We get feedback about our programming. So it's something we're constantly keeping an eye on. And it is something that we're constantly practicing curiosity around. Like the number of conversations that I'll have with a partner or a director of programming will have or our director of rentals, like all three of us are constantly checking in with our stakeholders and our thinkers to be like, does that make sense? Is this a place that town hall needs to take a stance? Or is this a place where town hall can in fact make the final decision on whether we want to have this programming or not? But that external pressure feels really hard and it can feel, especially if you get 10 emails in one day about the same program, it can feel incredibly stressful. And it's the same for our staff, right? Like there are things that we produce in our building that our staff may not agree with. And that can be a challenge. So how do you marry that and what is that responsibility?
Mm. So, Kate, what about you as a leader? When is it difficult for you to practice curiosity at work, especially in this space?
Yeah, I think some of that is, what I was just talking about in a place when it feels like we have to uphold freedom of expression and free speech. It feels like practicing curiosity is a gift and a privilege that we don't always have time for. And we have so many events. Every executive director says this, but like there are just times when we are in back-to-back decision-making mode and it feels curiosity is the last thing I have time for. And then when I can step out of that space, I recognize that actually curiosity is the thing that I need to be giving. And I think what's a real joy about being able to step back and make that time is really just like changing the dynamic. And I think that's the gift of curiosity, that it can really change the dynamic. My instinct is to solve fast. I'm one of those people who wants to get through it, to get through conflict, to get through decision, to get to the end of something so that we can move forward. And that is not always the right answer. And I think that can be incredibly vulnerable and incredibly humbling. And it's something our leadership team is trying to constantly reset with each other, that we may not need the answer, or even better, that we can have an answer for the thing in front of us, but we don't necessarily need to solve the long-term answer, and that we have more time to ask questions about the next season or the next time that we have to make that decision. So it's hard. it feels really hard.
Could you give an example?
Yeah, I think, most recently something we just finished our strategic plan. We just launched it in, September. It's still September. We launched our 3-year strategic plan in September of 24, and it will cover the next 3 years. And as a part of that strategic planning process, something that we had to go through was looking at our business model. We've been operating in a deficit for the last 4 fiscal years, which is not new for arts and culture, but it was new for Town Hall to be in that space. And there was a lot of factors. We were coming out of the pandemic. We had just completed a $35 million campaign. The whole organization is more expensive to run than it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. So looking at our business model and really starting to reckon with what are the changes that we need to make and how do we make those? And one of the decisions that we're on the edge of is, do we start doing private rentals and weddings and corporate rentals in a larger way to make up for some of operating at a deficit? And that's a really loaded question for Town Hall because for 20 years, we haven't done weddings and we've only been around for 25 years. So there's a lot of opinions and there's a lot of big feelings from our staff. And there's a lot of big feelings about how do we make a decision to rent a venue that we've always used for accessibility and a hub for community ideas, and also marry that with revenue generation and profitability. And that requires a lot of curiosity in really thoughtful, careful ways to make sure that we're hearing people, we're listening to ourselves, and we're also using data to solve for the bottom line. And that's a good example of it feeling hard. Like that for me has been really tricky to solve for.
Did you have to change your mind, your own mind in that? Did you come in
Absolutely.
thinking, I want this?
The first time it came up in a meeting, I remember sitting there and looking at our rentals director, who has been with the organization for 22 years. So she actually saw us do weddings. And I looked at her and I was like, what? You want us to what? Do weddings? And then I was like, well, it's maybe actually a good idea. Let's pencil it out. So yeah. And then I had to change the board's mind too. So it was a cascade.
Because I can imagine that there could be, that feels so commercial. And yet another way to reframe that is, wow, that means a whole bunch of people are going to be taking these great photographs on Town Hall, setting them out on social media and promoting it and actually making the space maybe more accessible too.
That's right. Yeah. And from the staff perspective, one way that I try and step back and practice curiosity sitting in an executive director seat is thinking about what I wish an executive director had told me when I was sitting in another seat in the organization. And I feel like that's a really good rule of thumb for leaders to be able to step in and out of that, because we weren't just born into executive director positions or leadership positions. This has been years and years in the making. So how do you look back and say, so how would I want an executive director to explain this to me? And when you can reframe it for staff and board too, as an opportunity for us to strengthen the organization and to also, quite frankly, make it easier to pay each other, then it becomes a different conversation, because it really gets back to, well, if the business model is not working, then we have to change the business model. So there are ways to ground it that feel more curiosity based than just like that first initial reaction, which can be emotional.
I find it fun to actually remember the first initial reaction and to go, okay, and I changed my mind, and I can talk about it. And then that also makes it easier for other people to change their mind too, because sometimes we can feel that we have to be consistent and stick with our integrity by not changing our minds. And yet sometimes that's not always what's best for the organization.
Yeah. And I think organizations get stuck. I think especially long-term leaders, or when you serve an organization for a long time, 8 years is not a short tenure in the nonprofit sector. And I think about that a lot. I've seen Town Hall go through a lot of transition, and where do I get stuck just because it's the way we've always done it? Instead of asking, how else could we do this? Like, what would that look like? And what would that feel like? And that is curiosity in practice.
It's also interesting that you were at the organization in the director of development role, which is for people who don't understand nonprofits. That's about the money. That's the revenue generation, right? And now you're in this new role. And yeah, what you just said about having to think about it from different roles. When you're not sitting in that executive director seat, it's so easy to be, well, this is the way we should run the organization.
That's right. It's also really interesting to watch staff practice concern for their roles and to remember what it was like to feel that way. And as an executive director and in any leadership role, to have to practice a lot of empathy, both for yourself and to give yourself grace. It was recently, I have an executive coach who's really great. And we were recently talking about when you're sitting in conflict with someone and you're thinking about who is the villain in the story, it's often the leader. And it doesn't matter if you give that person empathy or curiosity or civil dialogue. Like, it is just really hard to lead from that position because everyone needs a villain. And like, that's also part of curiosity and being able to sit with it and being, again, like, curiosity can push you to be uncomfortable, and curiosity can also push you to be a better leader. So you have to do those things, and it requires energy. And you also, as a leader, have to protect your own capacity for that energy. And I think that's really important.
What you just said, Kate, it's making me think of, why is it always bad to be the villain? Sometimes the villain is actually what makes the story go forward. It gives the story energy, right?
Yes, that is exactly how my coach was trying to reframe it. And I was like, oh, right. Like, it's also, how many villains did I have to get to this point of being a leader and being able to tell my story and being able to also have been influenced by all of those people who came before me. And that's great. And if you can reframe it, it's incredibly powerful.
So, Kate, I want to end with the question of what is sparking curiosity for you in your own personal life right now?
Yeah. So I grew up on a small farm in upstate New York, which means I got to spend a lot of time with my hands in the dirt. And I also got to spend a lot of time with my mom in the kitchen. And for me, how I like to practice curiosity on a really regular basis that makes me feel incredibly grounded is trying new recipes every few months, because I feel like I get caught in the same rut over and over. So that is really, for me, my curiosity shows up as experimentation in the kitchen. And I think sometimes you just have to let things simmer. And for me, like, that is the basis of curiosity. You just have to, like, kind of put something on a stove and let it keep going for a while. So we are a part of a small CSA, a community supported agriculture share, from Western Washington. And what happens with the CSA is that the box shows up and you don't usually know until the day of what's going to be in it. And then my husband and I, we usually try and cook at least one thing together each week from the box without using a recipe. And it's very fun and requires a lot of patience and curiosity.
What was the last thing you made?
Oh my gosh, we made pizza over the weekend and we used a whole bunch of weird toppings and it was very fun.
Love it.
So it doesn't have to be like a brand new. It can just be a new topping on pizza. So we roasted some carrots and also had some ricotta and basil and some pesto that we made, and it was really nice.
Kate, you're making me realize that while I will try new recipes, I still want to plan ahead. I don't know if I could just do it with a box that gets delivered with fresh ingredients, and I have to figure it out, because the thing about fresh ingredients is you have to use them too. So
you have to use them. Yeah, it's part of the fun though. Because playing is also a part of curiosity, which is nice.
Kate, could you tell people how they can get in touch with you?
Oh my gosh. Well, first, everyone should come to Town Hall, and I'm there a lot. So find me at Town Hall. But also email, LinkedIn, and Instagram are my favorite venues if you're looking to get in touch with me. So all of those are a good way to find Kate.
So I also just want to reinforce that Town Hall is a beautiful space. The upstairs, the downstairs, the small library room too. It's just all of the different spaces. It's so beautiful and possibly available to rent for weddings, maybe too.
That's right. If you're looking for a place to get married, let me know.
Thank you so much, listeners. Remember to practice curiosity at work. And if you are ever in need of some support in helping your team practice curiosity at work, please reach out to us at curiositybase.com.